Today, we're going to talk all about the power of vulnerability and how that factors into content creation and building a brand. Join me on the Fanny Dunnigan Show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Fanny Dunnigan Show. And I am Fanny Dunnigan coming to you live from Dallas, Texas. And this show is all about creator tips, tools, and tales. I'm super passionate about content creation, and every other week, I bring to you amazing content creators and showcase their unique specialties and gifts and messages. So that leads me to my content tip of the week. So this week's content tip of the week is more of an announcement, because what's happening is LinkedIn audio events is here. So for those of you that are fans of Clubhouse, it's basically Clubhouse now on the LinkedIn platform, right? It has very similar features to Clubhouse. It's able to have a speaker and then an audience. I'm going to show you a quick screenshot of an event that I attended this morning, and it was with Clarine Mitchell, and I dropped in, and so you can see this is available to beta testers right now on LinkedIn, and it's basically a way for you to kind of do live streaming without the video side of it and the higher production side of it, but you can do it through audio. Right? It's all audio. You have a host. The host can invite speakers up to talk. There's people in the audience listening, and then you can, do show an emotion with a like or a heart or a clap or a laughing emoji, or you could raise your hand to let the host know that you want to speak as well. So it's a really cool feature. Eventually, it's going to be open to all LinkedIn users. And right now it's in beta testing. But if you go to a special hashtag, you're going to be able to see, if you subscribe to Gabe Leal's daily live stream guide, if you follow hashtag LinkedIn live streams or LinkedIn audio events, you're going to start to see these audio events on LinkedIn. And check out these beta testers. And it's just a really, really cool tool. Like, it's amazing what LinkedIn has been able to pull in. Everything from newsletters to lives, and now audio events and videos and images and texts and articles. Like, it's a one-stop shop on LinkedIn. So that's my content tip of the week. I wanted to let you know all about this new feature, LinkedIn audio events. So be sure to check it out. Follow the hashtag LinkedIn audio events, and you're going to start being able to see that pop up on your feed. I'd love to hear from the audience. Let me know in the comments what you think about this new feature of audio events. Yeah, Rebecca in the comments says, here we go. I can't wait to start using the audio room in events. Yes, I know, it's amazing, all the features that they're adding. So super excited for that. And that's my content tip of the week, letting you know about the audio events that are coming your way. And so now the main feature of the show, my amazing guests, and we're going to explore this very, very deep and impactful topic of vulnerability. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Cheri Garcia to the show as we talk about the power of vulnerability. Hi, Cheri. Welcome to the show.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm amazing. Happy New Year.
Happy
2022 kicking off.
This is definitely the first time I've ever gone live on my LinkedIn profile. My palms are like so sweaty. I know I do videos all the time, but man, the way like making somebody wait behind the scenes with all the whole animations, and you go, girl. You got it going on, man.
Thank you. It's been a progressive step. Progressive. I still, full disclosure, if we're going to talk about vulnerability, like I still kind of like get really nervous and like my heart just starts pounding right before a show. But it's also very thrilling. I think there's no other way of having that immediate feedback and connection with the audience. And we're going to see that in the chat here, and it's going to be amazing. So thank you for being on this show. I want to read everyone your bio because you've done a lot. You've achieved so many things. And, it's Cheri Garcia is the founder of Cornbread Hustle, a staffing agency for second chances. She's passionate about helping people with criminal backgrounds and individuals in recovery find transformation through employment or entrepreneurship. As someone who has reinvented her own life, she wanted to create a company to help others do the same. And before starting Cornbread Hustle, Cheri found her first transformation and recovery through inventing a tanning bed and starting a career in the TV news industry. She later found recovery a second time, but through faith and sober lifestyle. And with a strong background in marketing and PR, Cheri uses the skills she acquired to help individuals getting out of prison rebrand themselves to become the person they want to be and to get noticed by the people they want to meet. Cheri, lofty goals, big goals, and you're making it happen. How did you even come up with this idea? What drove you to this passion?
Oh my gosh. And sorry, my dog is making an appearance.
I love it. She's so adorable.
No.
I love it. This is the beauty of live.
I told you, that's why my palms were sweaty, and I'm like, oh my God.
I love it.
Was, man, I don't want to call it an accident, but it was definitely, it was part of my journey, and everything, all the gifts that I've always had and all the passions that I've always had, it kind of ended up evolving into me starting this company. So I became a meth addict in high school. I was on the cheerleading team, an AB honor roll student, just your regular girl next door. And I slipped into experimenting with meth. I became very addicted. And then I ended up hitting my rock bottom at the time after 2 years of using the drug every single day. And after I found my recovery from meth, which I did not go to rehab, I didn't do a 12-step program, which looking back, that's why I didn't fully recover. I went straight into entrepreneurship and success, and that became my identity. And that was a major issue. So I ended up getting a job in the newsroom, inventing a product. I was like always sharing with the world how much I was doing. I was like a piggy bank with a little bit of money that makes a lot of noise. So I was just seeking validation. And then I went into, when I was in the newsroom and inventing this product and getting a patent, that validation and that need for other people to think that I was successful kept just growing and growing. And then I started drinking. And so I looked okay on the outside for a really long time. I was in the media. I was a very young person. Before I was even able to drink, I invented a product. And so I didn't know I needed help. Other people didn't know I needed help. It was progressive. It was definitely a progressive disease. And as I started to have these successes, even though I was still drinking, I felt, this is legal. I work hard, play hard, and I'm off meth, so I can help people in prison. So I still had good intentions. And I still did help a lot of people. 10 years ago, I started going into the prison system and helping people with their business plans and their ideas. And then they got out of prison. And a few years later, I would start getting friend requests on Facebook from people who I met in prison. And and they were like, okay, I'm ready to put this business plan to work. And that's when I came up with the idea for Cornbread Hustle. I started to hone in on their natural gifts and talents and make phone calls and cold call and say, hey, I have this guy that really wants to work. He's willing to work for X amount. Here's the only thing, but I'm advocating for him or her. And I did that enough over a 1-month period, and that I was so passionate about it that I said, okay, I have to figure out how to make this a entrepreneurial journey, or else I'm going to work myself out of a job by getting all these people jobs. And then Cornbread Hustle was born, a staffing agency for second chances. 2 years later, I got arrested for a DWI as the CEO of Cornbread Hustle. Not a good look, but it was the best thing to ever happen, because I truly got back in the trenches with my employees, and I had a criminal record just like everyone else, and I was on probation like a lot of the people I was serving. And at that time, I had a couple thousand LinkedIn followers, and I was about 6 months sober. I did a selfie video, and that was the power of vulnerability. My first very vulnerable video. There was definitely no strategy behind it. I did not think telling the world that I had a breathalyzer in my car and that I got a DWI was going to help my business. I just had no choice for my own. I couldn't sleep at night. I felt like I wasn't living by my own core values of being transparent. So I was transparent, and fast forward to today, the company went from a negative bank account. I was bankrupt spiritually, physically, financially, to now I believe I have about 120,000 something followers on LinkedIn. All because
huge
people, right? And the business is a multi-million-dollar business, which blows my mind. So many people said, why don't you make this a nonprofit? You're going to charge companies money to hire people coming out of prison. I was like, yeah. So maybe it was good drunk. It was good that I didn't have all that fear and self-doubt to stop me. So it's part of the journey. I have now realized to not, of course, I look back at old pictures and I run into people that I used to network with when I first started this whole entrepreneurial journey. And sometimes I feel shame and I feel embarrassment, because I have evolved and transformed so much that sometimes I do want to shut the door on who I was in the past. But I'm working really hard to nurture both the old me and the new me, and understand that every single step that I took, including taking that first hit of meth, got me to where I'm at today, which is in this moment speaking with you on a LinkedIn Live.
And where do you think that passion to help others comes from, Cheri? Because you're tackling a big thing that a lot of people would run from and avoid. What drives you?
Fanny, I needed help. When I first did that LinkedIn video, there was no strategy behind the vulnerability. There was no, and I see a lot of that sometimes in LinkedIn now, where people are sometimes selling it as a strategy or a marketing technique. There was zero strategy behind it. I just remembered that for 5 whole years, I wrote in my journal that I wish I could drink less, but I really don't know how. And a huge reason that I didn't pursue sobriety quicker is because there was nobody that seemed like me talking about sobriety, or either I wasn't following the right people. It could have been my own fault for maybe I wasn't following the right people, but I did not have somebody that I felt relatable to. There was no woman entrepreneur saying that they still were closing business deals while saying no to alcohol. I justified for a very long time that I needed the alcohol to close these business deals. I need to network. I need it to relax, or else I'm going to have too much anxiety. And it just when I did that first selfie video explaining to the world I had a breathalyzer in my car, and my passion to help people is, I wake up every single day. I'm not a staffing agency or a headhunter or an entrepreneur. I'm just a person sharing my experience, hoping that others can look within and then go share their experience. And the more that people become vulnerable for the right reasons, the more that people can connect and evolve.
Yes. And I think Jason Hopper had a comment that really sums it up for me and for a lot of people, I think, that follow you, is it's your realness that makes your content engaging, Cheri. And the fact that it's not a strategy, it's not this like pre-planned, it's just you showing up. And what moves me about that, and why I was so excited to talk to you, and you and I had a prep call and earlier on this week, and I couldn't even, like, I got all emotional just talking to you, and we weren't even like talking about anything specific. But I think when someone shares openly and with vulnerability, it almost like opens up a gate or a doorway for others to feel like they have permission to do that also. And so it's almost like by you doing that, you open this way and this path forward for others to walk through that they didn't even know they wanted to walk through. But because it's open and they see this shining example of you, that then they're like, oh, I can do it too. And I can share it, and I can be real, and I don't have to have a mask, and I can just, speak authentically about my experience or my struggles and my challenges. So on behalf of, I know I don't speak for everyone, but I think I speak for a lot of people, like, you gave us permission. I think you give a lot of us permission, subtly, unconsciously, to be our authentic self as well.
No, thank you. Well, that's really a powerful compliment. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Like Carl in the comments is just saying, being vulnerable in your situation will empower others, people, to see there is a road that they can travel for change. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And then here, Jonathan saying, hearing someone share can help others feel like they are not alone, right? All too often we think we're the only ones with that problem, or we're the only ones that are going through that. And just hearing it, then we know we're not alone. There's someone else that could understand and be with us, even like virtually, right? Through your videos, right? So, but I want to talk a bit now about Cornbread Hustle, right? How did you go about setting up Cornbread, right? You already had some relationships with nonprofits or the prisons, or how did you kind of go about doing that and getting into that world?
It was totally from scratch. The first thing that I did when I came up with this idea, I literally Googled how to start a staffing agency, and I followed the steps from the Wikipedia, how to start.
Gotta love Google. Wikipedia.
All I did. And I read blogs that, and that's where, if we're talking about content creation, there is a company that now, I'm pretty sure they make about 6 figures working with us a year right now. And we work together with them only simply because in my first couple of weeks of trying to figure out how to start this staffing agency, they had such a helpful blog for me. And then they ended up being one of my main vendors for having this entire company. So that's the power of content creation and creating value for others. They created so much value for me and gave me so much resources. And they believed in me. They believed that I could do this, and now they're a really important part of our processes. And they had no strategy. They had no strategy with, if their strategy was to just help a bunch of startups become staffing agencies, they'd probably go bankrupt, because how many startups actually get off the ground? Not many. But there was no strategy besides putting value out to people and people falling. I guess that is a strategy, right? Falling to their website and ending up buying their product. But it worked. It worked, and I'm grateful for it. And I have a really great relationship with them. So blogging still is powerful. It still works.
and I think storytelling, like one of your staff, your people, their stories move people, and when we hear a story we resonate with, we want to take action. Like I came across a video where you shared the story of your recruiting manager, right? And I'd love for you to share her story a little bit, if that's okay. And because then she shared that story with, I guess, others in a workshop, right, at the prison. And then that kind of so she paid it forward, right? So tell us about that recruiting manager's story.
So we have a recruiting manager. All of our recruiters have at least we have a couple of things that set us apart from your regular everyday staffing agency. But one of them is that every single one of our recruiters has at least 5 years experience being incarcerated or addicted to drugs and or alcohol. And this particular recruiting manager spent several years in prison. She's the sweetest person. She is our prayer warrior. She's always praying for us. And it's interesting because when we go into meetings and I bring her with us, some of our clients will say well, we don't want any violent offenders. And we're like, oh, really? Because Desi's got assault with a deadly weapon. And they're like, what? The girl that just opened up in prayer? So she does have some major charges from her addiction. She was addicted to meth, and there was a lot of things that came with that. And she went back to a program that she was in prison, and she was able to show me her old bunk and everything. And she stood up in front of all of the girls there and shared her story. And we've already recruited a couple of people from prison. We hired one girl while she was still in prison, and her first day working with us was when she got out. And she's a rock star. She's been doing amazing for us. And that particular girl was she grew up in a family that was in the cartel. So she was at a very young age, 10 years old, helping with the family business. So she literally grew into it. And so her charge was related to possession of a lot of amounts of marijuana. And so every single girl or guy that's part of our company has a real unique story. And we don't hire people who just have an interesting story. They have to have the transformation that with it. And I can tell you firsthand, as somebody that started this company without the transformation. So it's really hard for anybody to get through our doors because I'm the person that was lying and manipulating. So I'm like, we're not bringing anybody into our company that hasn't really done the work to transform, because and that's why I make sure all of our recruiters have that 5 years experience of being the manipulators, because we all were living that lifestyle where we were manipulating. And it was really just because of our survival techniques. There was trauma that we all endured that caused us to behave the way that we did. We know that there's a need behind every behavior, and that helps us as we're working with the people that we serve to understand, even if they don't act right, and even if we have to move on from a candidate, that we're able to still be a light to them and make an impact, because we know that they're just at a phase of their journey where we're not connecting yet, we're not aligning, but maybe later on down the road, part of their journey will be that they're at Cornbread Hustle. So because we go back into the prisons, and because we are all from similar backgrounds and different journeys, we do understand how to help the people who are coming into our program who need a little bit of extra resources as we're placing them in jobs.
So much of what you do requires trust, right? Trust that the employer has for your services and to hire the people that you recommend. Trust that the transformation sticks and stays with your candidates, right? And then trust between you and your employees. And like, where do you think, one of the things like that you told me about is all these initiatives to build community and trust and empathy with your staff, right? Like, how do you nurture that, right?
So it definitely takes work. It was a very big shock and delightful surprise for us when COVID hit. We thought we were going to lose all of our business. I was only 1 year sober. I had just started to get the business at break even. And I was like, oh, heck no. Like, I already have the disease of alcoholism that almost took me out. Now we got a virus, not happening. So we had to pivot to a disinfecting company. We got hazmat suits. I did Google again. I went to Google and did everything that I needed to do to learn how to kill this coronavirus with whatever disinfectant that we needed to buy. And to my surprise, our company actually blew up with staffing because so many employers found themselves in a position where all of their employees had unemployment. And turns out people coming out of prison aren't eligible for unemployment because they don't have work history.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
How ironic.
I know. Even if they did, nobody coming out of prison wants to sit on unemployment. They've been sitting long enough. So it was our time to shine. And so we do still right now with the pandemic and everything, there are a lot of we vet our companies just as much as we vet the people, if not more, as we vet the people coming into our program. And all the companies we work with aren't perfect. Every type of, especially warehouse environments, they do have toxic environments because it is hundreds of employees and there are disgruntled employees sometimes. But I always tell our employers that if you want this second chance hiring thing to really work, you have to lead with empathy. And if you don't, if it's just not in you, if you're doing this just for the reason that you feel like you have to and you want more workers that won't quit on you, and you think that just because they got out of prison, they're not going to quit on you. There's other sets of issues when people have just got released from prison, that there are barriers. Just because they don't have as many options because of the felony conviction doesn't mean they won't quit on you. They're still not going to come in to be treated like crap. Yes. So one thing that we do is we start from the inside, and we do a lot of undercover boss stuff too, where we try to get to know the workplace environment because we want to make sure that it's healthy for the people that we're placing, because we don't want to put people in a position to relapse or dangle a carrot in front of their face to mess up. So we make sure that we are really coming up with a custom second chance hiring plan for all of our clients, but we start from the inside. So I have a Tuesday morning recovery meeting that I host every single morning that any of our employees or anyone on the LinkedIn community, anyone's invited to. And it's for anybody struggling with any type of an addiction. Thursday mornings, I have a women's Bible study that anyone's free to join anytime. And then
where can they find information about all those, actually? Is there a website? Is it on your website?
I wonder if it's on my website. I'm sure my IT guy is watching this right now, so get it on the website.
Okay.
No,
yeah.
It is.
There you go.
Word of mouth,
Awesome.
So it's word of mouth, and I post about it every month. And
Great.
Instagram stories. So my Instagram stories, I do post a lot of different motivational things. LinkedIn, while I'm very vulnerable on LinkedIn, I do make sure that I don't overshare, or I do respect where I'm at. I stay in my lane on whatever platform I'm on. And I'm sure we'll get into some of those discussions later. But another thing with my employees, I pay for them. So I have a licensed therapist, and she works with every single one of my recruiters once a week. And she's there just to help them become the woman or the man that they're evolving to be. And, it is expensive. It's very expensive to invest in your employees and to hire a therapist, but I I don't lose employees because they get in a bad mood or they get in their feelings. Um, if they do get in their feelings, they usually talk it over with this resilience advocate that we have before they come storming into my office in tears. So it has, even though I was doing it for the right reasons, I was putting people over profit, it's turned out to show a major ROI for our company. And if I died today, I want it, I'm saying it right now, anybody watching this, I want it to be put on my grave, Cheri liked to pay for people's therapy. That's my favorite. That's my favorite gift I give to almost if anybody comes to me that's close to me, that's a family member or a friend or an employee and says, hey, I want therapy. I'm like, great, I'm paying, let's go. So therapy. And then we have a very close-knit family. We do a lot of community events, at least once a month with our internal team. And I put out a newsletter every single month. And in that newsletter, I do a revenue share with all of my employees. And I keep them engaged with what all of our plans are. I keep them engaged with my own personal goals, and I know their personal goals. I mean, we're really nitty gritty with it. I know some of their goal weights and when they want to hit their goal weight and by when. So it's just, we know that we're coming to work every single day for a bigger purpose, just to get a paycheck. We're coming to work every single day to be part of something bigger, and there's no way you can fake these things. I can't fake it. And I've seen a lot of CEOs, because vulnerability is hard. It was the hardest thing. You guys, I mean, I'm doing this podcast right now on the power of vulnerability. I was the least vulnerable person you ever met. That's why I drank so much. I hid behind a mask of success, and I didn't want anyone. I never cried until this year when my dad died. Even after 2 years of recovery, I never cried. No one's ever seen me cry. I really did feel that being vulnerable I was transparent. I was open. So there's a difference between transparent and vulnerability, right? Vulnerability is like opening yourself up by showing your true, raw, authentic feelings. Transparency is stating facts and being honest about it. And sometimes, and that's what I tell my employees a lot. I had an employee before that was like, well, I'm being transparent. I was like, well, you can't come in every day and say you got drunk the night before. Yes, you're. so
well, maybe the distinction there is transparency is saying I got drunk the night before, but vulnerability is
asking for help.
I drank because whatever,
and
right?
Yes. And while we're on that topic of transparency and vulnerability, I get interviewed a lot on how to do your first video, how to build content, what to put out there. One thing that I'm learning as I get reconnected to my true authentic self, not everybody is good at everything other people are good at. Maybe it's just not your thing to get on video and share your story. Maybe your gift is in a different area. Maybe you're an amazing writer and people hang on to every word that you write. And so I want to say that just because something's going on in your life and you don't tell people about it doesn't mean that you're not transparent. I talk all about my recovery journey publicly because my business is about second chance hiring and people are holding on to my words for their own hope. But you don't see me getting on LinkedIn and telling you guys about failed relationships or how I feel about my ex-husband or what I want in a man or anything that has to do with love and relationships. If I had a dating service, then I probably would. So
that'd be a whole other podcast.
Just because one person is successful at doing it one way, just because I get on LinkedIn and I have a successful business because of my vulnerability about my drug and alcohol addictions doesn't mean that that would work for you. Maybe you have a powerful story in a whole different area and video isn't the way to deliver it. I'm excited about that audio thing that you just shared about, because I've done Clubhouse before. I've been on it. There are a lot of people who have such a powerful voice and speak so beautifully, but they don't have the knack for being on camera because maybe their own self-doubt, and they're just not there. Self-doubt, or maybe they don't like the way that they look and it holds them back from being such a powerful speaker. So what a great way to dip your toes into the water on getting comfortable on using your voice. So I just urge everyone that ever, like, somebody told me yesterday, or it was today on our Bible study, that she tried to she wanted her inner Cheri to come out so she could do something that she was trying to do. And while I think that's amazing and that makes me feel really good, I want everyone to have their inner selves come out. We all have such a gift. My gift is speaking and entrepreneurship, connecting. I have a way to talk to people who feel broken and they open up, and I have a way to help people want to evolve for themselves. It's my gift. I know it. I honor it. And I don't try to be the influencer that's so good. Like, Fanny, when I was watching your live, and I would have been so nervous. I don't know if I could do what you do. I don't know if I could get on live and have this extravagant, beautiful, I couldn't do. I'd be so it's
nervous. A constant work in progress. But just like you, I feel called to lift others up and amplify their message. I think because I grew up very shy, very quiet, and it's only over the last decade or two that I finally like found my voice. And I think everybody needs to eventually they'll step into their power and to step into their gifts. And I want to be the person to like nudge it and like, kind of push them over and highlight them. And I feel called to that. So to your point, like, I think we're just, especially the older I get, like, I think more and more, like we hear this inner voice or this inner nudge.
Critic.
Yeah. To finally like be who we always thought we were, or be who we always could be. Right. Like if I talked to you when you were 10 years ago, right, and said, Cheri, you're going to open this staffing agency, what would you have said?
So I'm so glad you bring that up. I've been doing a lot of inner work because I've been developing this course that we'll talk about later. But I might have told you when we were on our prep call. So I'll give a couple of examples of how I had an inner voice that knew that I'd be doing what I'm doing today, and how it helps me know that I'm on the right track. One of them is kind of funny, but it's interesting. I had a reoccurring dream my whole childhood when I was younger, all the way up into high school, all the way when I was working in the news, that I was the only friend of Freddy Krueger. And I kept trying to talk him into just changing his life, and he could do this. And I was the only person in this dream not afraid of him at all. And I saw his potential. And it's so weird that I had those dreams that long ago. And then when I was in the newsroom trying to become a news reporter or trying to get my foot in the door, the only stories I was interested in doing was I wanted to get in the shoes of the homeless. I wanted to really share the stories of people who just were broken, or I just always had this knack for seeing potential in people. And then another thing that happened when I had just graduated high school, a career coach said, I think you'd be a really good headhunter. I said, what is a headhunter? I want to be a reporter. And she was like, such a connector. It's like where you take an employee and connect them with an employer. And I was like, whatever. And so fast forward to today, I see how God has worked in my life. Like, it was planted down on the inside, but I
Little
allowed
whispers, right? Little whispers. Yeah.
but self-doubt, trauma, really terrible things that have happened in my life that made me slowly move closer towards drugs or the bottle, to where that true authentic voice telling me who I'm supposed to be was slipping away. And that's a big reason why I'm not going to say it's easy for me to stay sober now, but when I think about taking that first drink, I'm just not trying to weaken that Wi-Fi signal that I have now. Like, I have good
Ah.
Wi-Fi,
You got to
and
like make sure the channel's open and
I
clear.
want that channel open. So for me, I don't know. I'm 3 years sober. Maybe I'll change my mind one day, but for now, I don't see why taking that first drink would even be helpful to me, especially with all that's changed and where I'm at today. So
Yeah.
I've
And one of
always
the things I wanted to share, like, and I think vulnerability and authenticity has changed and really morphed over the years, right? Like, I want to share real quick, like the results of the survey a very informal survey on LinkedIn that was conducted, right? Because so I just did a very, meager poll on LinkedIn about what do you think about vulnerability, right? And just had two options. It's a weakness, avoid it, or it's a strength, lean into it. And it garnered 839 votes. Coming from like a decade ago, vulnerability was not spoken about. I think Brene Brown totally like made it a lot more mainstream. And now we're at a plate where like 92% of people think vulnerability is a strength, right? And even when I kind of went through the comments, right, we had a whole bunch where people just shared about how it's a strength, lean into it. I'm just going to read out a few because I really think it shows how far we've come, right? And then there's also people that think it's still both, right? Catherine McCord is both, depending on the situation. For speaking, it is everything. For hiring, it is helpful. For negotiating, it will kill you. Nothing is all bad or all good. Situation matters, right? And then Alan Azar, vulnerability when expressed tactfully is a fast track to building authentic relationships, right? And it goes on and on, right? We don't even have time to go through everything. But how far it's come that it's okay to share and be vulnerable. But at the same time, there's like vulnerability versus oversharing, right? And like where do you see that, right? Especially in like being authentic in content creation, and what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, and I have to toe the line on that. So just like I brought up earlier, I feel that if I was talking to my LinkedIn audience about my, let's say if it has nothing to do with alcoholism or transformation or how it affects you in the workplace, I feel that it would be oversharing, and I would have to check myself and wonder why I'm needing to share all this information about myself, and am I seeking some kind of validation, or do I need help? One thing that keeps me really safe from doing any of that, I do see a therapist weekly still. I've been seeing a therapist, and I probably will forever. Even I go to my therapist and sometimes I'm like, well, let's just chat. Like I really have nothing to talk about,
Yeah.
but this is a tool that's helped me, so I don't want to end it. So having a
Yeah.
therapist, I work a recovery program, and I have sisters in sobriety that I can talk to about the really difficult things. So I have a couple of rules of thumb as it relates to sharing on LinkedIn or any of the vulnerability stuff that I do. One of them is, if I'm still processing it and I haven't I haven't talked to one of those people, like a therapist or a sober sister, about it yet, and I haven't wrapped my mind around what it is. So for instance, I have not posted a lot of videos in 2021. My father died. It was the worst thing that I had ever gone through in my life. I haven't been very open about it because it's something that is something that I'm still processing on the cause of his death, and how drugs had been involved in me and my father's life. And it's just, I was such an enabler back then, and so I'm still working through some of that stuff. And so when my dad died, although I'm open to sharing some of those stories soon to help other young women who are in recovery and suffering from generational trauma and addiction. My dad had just died. Like I couldn't do it. So if I'm still processing something, and then I became a caregiver unexpectedly, I was taking care of his mother, which was very difficult. So I wasn't posting a lot of videos, and the only video I was even able to post was something that, although I was still going through it, I had already addressed what the issue was and what my fears were with my therapist and my sober sisters. But the imposter syndrome, because I was going through all the grief and all the feelings that I hadn't gone through in sobriety yet, and then I had all this success, and I was winning awards. I got all these, like, I won $165,000 from United Way, and then I just the DCEO list, and there was 40 under 40.
Quick shout out. Yes. Because everyone, I want you to know just how fabulous Cheri is, because there's all this stuff. But yes, Dallas CEO Magazine, Dallas 500, one of that list. And then Dallas Business Journal, 40 under 40. Like, those things are no joke, everyone. Yes.
Even enjoy, because I was in such a place of grief, and the more successful people told me I was, the more I shrunk. So I went from doing a video every other day to I couldn't even get myself to do a video once a month. But I got over the hump. I now feel like I'm standing in my power and my confidence, and that's where the power of vulnerability is. If I wasn't vulnerable enough to admit my struggle with imposter syndrome and talk to my mentor about it, or talk to the sober sisters or therapists, then I wouldn't have known the work to do to get through it and get over the hump. And now I'm back to my rock star self, and I feel confident, and I'm doing videos again, and I feel creative. So sometimes we're just in a season where we're not feeling like our best selves, and that's okay. Sometimes it's time to sit and be still and do some self-work. And that's where I was at in 2021. And I feel I don't want to go through it again. I don't want to go through it again at all. I know that grieving is inevitable and it will happen again in my life. But I am hoping that I don't have any really difficult lessons this year, because I do feel very, I just feel very excited, and I feel like I have momentum to really take myself to the next level. 2021 was like holding on, like I was holding on by a thread. Like it kept growing, things kept working, and I think that's because I kept putting people over profit, and I don't know. It's just that's why I believe in my God and my higher power, because I'm like, how did the company survive when I was barely hanging on by a thread, and my whole world, turned upside down? And I think, if we're looking at it from a worldly perspective, the answer is I took care of my employees. So they took care of me. I'm going to get emotional if I keep talking about that, but that is the power of vulnerability. Yes. Talking through things with your employees, paying for them to have resources to get the help that they need. I remember when I got the call that my dad, like, I got the call. I didn't even know if I knew he was passed away, but I got the call. Yeah. I ran out of the office screaming and crying. And I think the entire office knew, like, this is going to be bad. And, it's, I've cried so much in front of my employees, and they've seen the real me, that when I do go through things, they love me, and they don't want to disappoint me, and they want this company to grow. And so I don't know. Yes, I've made some big mistakes on the vulnerability thing and not having boundaries, and I've had to learn a lot of things the hard way, but I wouldn't take anything back ever, because all those experiences are helping me now talk to HR professionals and tell them, okay, here's how to do this, but don't do that. I really learned some things the hard way, big time. I mean, I didn't wake up one day a sober person with a bunch of boundaries, becoming vulnerable. Like it was a process to learn how to do this.
Well, you have kind of like 3 tips when it comes to self-awareness, right? I think that's like your probably best tool, right? Is your self-awareness now through all the work that you've done, you know, through therapy and self-work. Share with us those 3 tips.
So for me, and this might be difficult for some people, but if I hit record to do a selfie video and I mess up even one time, I just don't do it, because I just feel like it didn't. Once I have to start over, then I have to ask myself, why am I putting this content out? And if I have to censor myself or polish myself, then it's not authentic. For me, I'm not saying that for anybody else. And that's only because I do have a gift of speaking, and I'm able to do videos in one take. So if I'm not doing a video in one take, then there's a problem for me. That's one. The other one, which I went way on a tangent about, is if I haven't fully talked to my people or processed something, I'm not going to jump on social media and tell the world something I'm struggling with. I will share my journey, and I will share the struggles. One video I did, I think I was 1 year sober, maybe a year and a half. I can't remember. I remember I was sitting in the grass in the woods, and I was in workout clothes, and I did a selfie video. And I remember I wasn't even looking at the camera. I was just looking down, picking at the grass. And I was like, hey, I'm just making this video to say that I actually want to drink, and I don't know why. I really don't know why I still want to drink, because now life is so good. I'm just saying it. Maybe other people feel the same way, and I don't know. Like, that was an example of me sharing something that I'm still going through, but it wasn't without having my circle of people to help me through it. And it wasn't without processing it. And my one final tip before I post a video, it's very rare that you'll see me do a video that says buy from me, or we're looking for clients, or maybe every once in a while I'll talk about a need that we have. Maybe we have a lot of females in recovery and we don't have a lot of jobs for females. But I try to make sure every single video that I post provides value to somebody. If it doesn't provide value for somebody, then I'm just being an egomaniac wanting to hear myself talk. So those are my 3 tips before I do a selfie video and hit post on LinkedIn.
There you go, folks. The power of vulnerability. And the hour goes by so quick, Cheri, and I can talk to you for another hour, if not more. But I do want to make sure that we tell people about your Starting Over course. Share a bit about that.
So I'm just so excited about this course that I've worked really hard to make. It's totally unscripted, and it's 12 weeks long. And by unscripted, I mean, I know the structure. It's everything that I learned in the last 3 years of recovery. It's like, in recovery, it's everything that I learned around feelings and emotions and navigating all of that. But in the last 10 years, also throwing in like how to hit your milestones for your goals, and entrepreneurship, and how to reverse engineer some steps to get to the next level. And I really created this because I wanted my employees, well, I want them to, they're going to all get it for free. So any employee that works for Cornbread Hustle will get to take this course. And now these people who had just got out of prison will have a certificate of completion that they can now add to their resume. And our clients can feel good that our employees are now taking courses that talk about recognizing toxic behaviors, or how to address how to process a trigger. What is a trigger? Like, what is codependency? What is a coping mechanism? So it's a 12-week video series with all of that. And we are providing this to people in prison as well. So I'm excited about that. And I am going to make it public, and I don't know when. I'm going to start doing a soft launch internal with our own employees, because that's first things first. But I am going to roll it out, because I did make sure that while it can help somebody who's still sitting in prison, it will also help anybody who's undergoing any transformation in their life, whether it be a divorce or stepping into a new role, or going through a major breakup and trying to let go of codependency, or being in recovery from anything. I think we all have something in our lives that we're in recovery from at any given time. I know I have my own thing that I'm in recovery from right now, on top of all the other stuff I'm in recovery from. So that will be coming out hopefully by the spring. So I'm excited about that. I've recorded.
I want everyone to connect to Cheri right here. Here's her profile, and make sure you look her up. Look up Cornbread Hustle to look at her services. And just, I think I used to think that our life purpose is to be happy. But one thing I learned from following Tony Robbins actually is that I think our life purpose is actually around growth, and for us to constantly grow, and to your point, to constantly transform every season. We have peaks and valleys, but it's all still upwards, right? And you remind us of that journey, and that it's okay to seek help, and that it's okay to speak openly about it, and to know that we're not alone. So thank you, Cheri. Thank you. Everyone, please go connect with her. I was so absorbed with your story that I wasn't even a good host to my commenters here. But everyone, I saw all your comments. Wherever I could, I would bring it up onto the feed. But I just felt really called to make sure that we hear Cheri's words. And I want to thank a lot of the people that were sharing openly in the comments as well, and little stories of their transformations and their challenges and their lessons. And I think when we do that, when we share, then we all feel a little more connected to each other. We all feel that there's good in the world. And it's so nice to be reminded of that amongst all this pandemic and negativity that can come out of stressful situations. So thank you, Cheri. Thank you so much for your time.
At the end of the day, what I try to do, because there are people with difficult behaviors that we have to deal with sometimes, all of us, whether it's somebody who's cutting us off on the road, or it just an angry client or a customer or whatever. I try to remember every single day that we are all just on a journey walking each other home, and enjoy that journey and see little tiny miracles in every single person we talk to. Or we can be bitter and annoyed and see everything as an inconvenience. It's really, however you want to live, it's up to you. But I peace, and I do have my days where I'm disgruntled. Sure. And I have my days where, the other day I said to my director of operations, I said, I'm just going to be mad until I'm not. I'll be back later. That's all I could say.
Because everything passes.
It passes.
I've learned that too. Everything passes.
And that means the good times too. That means the good times. It's going to pass.
Yeah.
So just enjoy the ride as much as you can.
Thank you. And I want to leave everyone with this message. And everyone, go connect with Cheri, follow her journey, support her company and her cause. And it's I'm kind of at a loss for words, Cheri, sometimes, but I think everyone gets it. Everyone got it, your message. And remind all of you out there to continue to shine your light, share your gifts, share your messages, share your voice with the world. And whether it's video or text or audio or whichever form you find comfortable with, make sure you do that and to shine your light. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and take care. Take care of each other and yourselves.